You know, not so long ago, a lot more people made their own clothes. And from talking to many of you, I know that a lot of you want to start, you know, dabbling into making your own clothes as well. But it can be a little intimidating. How do you start? Well, I'm going to suggest that you can start the way many started back in the day. They started small, and that really can help you, teach you, inspire you to do your own. I'm Cathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. If you really want to start making garments, hey, you can't go wrong by starting small. So hear me out. You know, if you want to start making a garment, or any garment, you kind of need a pattern, you need inspiration, you need to learn how to basically put the fabric together. And if you're doing a garment for yourself, well, that can be kind of an investment, right? An investment in fabric, because we take more fabric than my little friend here. And, well, what if it doesn't fit? All kinds of different questions. And there's few techniques that you kind of need to know that kind of help you get that garment looking street worthy. So I'm making some doll clothes, and I thought that might be a great way to inspire you or show you how you basically can do a basic garment. Now, my little friend here is visiting. Her princess is on vacation, and she's visiting Grandma for a while. So I have just a little while to use her as a model to fit some clothes. Now, if you start to look in the world of doll clothes, don't think you know what it is, because there are so many options available out there. If you look on eBay, sure, you can buy garments, you can buy doll clothes, but I'll use that for inspiration. For example, for this doll, there are outfits that have been released out there a few years ago. They're retired. And now, well, let's just say that outfits that you can get that are the real ones, it can be quite of an investment. So I use that for inspiration. I can take just a few dollars worth of fabric, some time, some imagination, and I can get an outfit that might sell for quite a bit. And when the little princess gets to use the outfit, I really want to inspire taking care of your clothes, having it be just something that's a little bit more special than just throwaway fashion. Also, if you're interested in clothing history, oh my goodness, there are historical outfits. Now, I love historical fashion. I'm fascinated with it. I don't need an 1850s ball gown. Where would I wear it? But could I make one? Absolutely. To make one for me, would need yards and yards and yards and yards of expensive fabric. But to make one for this size, not that much at all. And there are patterns out there. So I have a handout for this and all my other different Sewing Tech Talk videos. You can go to moresew.com and under shop, and there's all of my different handouts are there. So I'll list some resources that you can go to find some of those patterns. There are free patterns there as well. And I even found free patterns. They also had free embroidery downloads for that right size that you'd use for a doll. So I'm just saying that the opportunities are out there. Patterns you can digitally download. You don't have to worry about, is it going to fit? Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But all kinds of ways for you to get started. So this little outfit, I didn't exactly have a pattern for the blouse. I kind of came up with my own. And that's another point. If you want to kind of design some clothing, some different items, you have a vision, but you're not so sure you're going to make it for a big person yet. Well, I saw this little outfit for sale for big money on eBay. I just made it myself. I took a pattern and I kind of modified it to create a little Western shirt. I'm fascinated with little Western shirts. This is a built-in embroidery design on the Stellair that we're going to be sewing on. I put little buttons on it and all kinds of little added features. I piped all the seams. It was a blast. Will the princess get the value out of it? It doesn't matter, because I got the value out of it. I got to sew something. You know, every time you sew something, you learn something. And I've been doing this a long time, and I learned a few things. Now, here is a pattern that I actually purchased. It was a whopping $6, and it was a digital download. But it was for this little skirt right here, which I thought went perfectly with the little Western shirt. It has this little panel that goes back and forth. So see how it's a set of culottes now? If you unbutton the one side, and yes, I made the tiny buttonholes, this flips over to the side and becomes a fake skirt. It's called the Edwardian bicycle skirt, and it's based on a design from 1915. So if you're into historical, oh my goodness, there's a lot out there. Now, what if you don't have, you know, a little model or a little princess that you're going to sew for? Well, I found that you can actually, there's a pattern for a little mannequin. So I'll put all that, I'll list all these sources for patterns. I'll list those in the handout, because I think, well, I think that might be a neat display item. I'm kind of into horsey items right now. So there's a little Western shirt, and here's a pair of Levi's. So see what I'm saying? You can have some kind of fun. You don't have to get very advanced, but you can if you want to. So now let's talk about the beginnings of making a garment. So let's get my patterns out of the way. So now, you don't need a lot of fabric to make these, so it's not that much of an investment to get started. What you'll do is you'll open up the pattern, and inside the pattern, or a pattern that you print from a download, sometimes you have to tape those together. You can print them out on regular paper. On a pattern that you might purchase, it might come on a tissue. So if you look at the pattern and you look at the instructions are going to tell you what pieces that you need to create the garment. This is for a little jacket, a little like riding jacket. Now, I am kind of familiar with what pattern pieces look like, because I've been doing it for a long time. But you may not be. So this is a great way to kind of dip your toe into what shapes am I going to do? How do I do the sleeve? How do I do the cuffs? How do I do the collar? It's all there written in the instructions. And the pattern pieces you need for each individual garment, well, they're there. Now, a pattern really is kind of just a sewing guideline or a sewing plan. Because what you want to do, if you're making something for a doll or for you, you're going to want to make sure these pieces kind of relate. Are all dolls the same size? Well, I don't know. I don't think so. Who knows? So what I do is I do basically a pattern fit. And what is that? Well, I take my little friend, and I take my pattern piece. Now, this is the pattern piece for the front of the jacket, the side of the jacket. This is the front. And notice how it has all these different markings and placement lines. It even tells you where the buttonholes need to go. So what I do is I take my pattern piece, whether it's on me or my little friend here, and I lay it up next, and I kind of get a visual how this is going to fit. Is this going to fit? Is the side going to be on the side? Is the front going to overlap enough? If I'm doing the pants, which I am doing, I'm going to take the pants, and I did this before I cut them out, but I'm going to take the pants and I'm going to lay it up next to me or the doll, lay it up next to there, and I'm going to check and make sure that the waist is going to be where the waist is going to be. Are you petite? Well, let's make sure that the length is right before you even cut out your fabric. So that's the way you can kind of tissue fit the pattern before you even cut it out. Because even though we're dealing with a minimal amount of fabric here, you don't want to waste any. So To cut out your piece, there's usually a guideline on the pattern piece. It shows you where pieces are going to go, where they're going to fit for the certain amount of fabric that they tell you that you need. When I'm buying fabric for a garment for me, I buy generally just a little bit more, just in case. So to lay out a pattern piece, you take the fabric, and generally we need 2. It'll say how many you need. It'll say cut 2 on the piece. So I lay the fabric, usually wrong sides together, and then you lay the pattern piece on. Another thing that you're going to look for is you're going to look for this little arrow, and that's going to show you how the pattern piece needs to relate to the grain of the fabric. So sometimes we want fabric to kind of fit, to be kind of stretchy. Sometimes we don't want it to be stretchy, and the grain of the fabric is kind of important. So that grain line goes straight up and down. Here's the little sleeve. The grain line goes up and down, and you want to be pretty cognizant of that. When you pin the pattern piece to the fabric, you're going to then cut out around along the line. Now, some pattern pieces out there for big people garments, they have multiple lines, because you can find a pattern piece that maybe fits, 3 or 4 different sizes. Use the measurements on the pattern to kind of see where it works for you. Don't forget, you can do that tissue layout to kind of see. And you might want to make, for you might want to make like a trial garment just to see. Because when I make a garment, I use that pattern over and over and over again. I've made the investment in that. And once I find that it fits, I'm usually really into making multiples, because you want it to fit after you make it. So after you pin it out there, you're going to cut along the line that works for you. If you have a pattern piece that has a little arrow like this, you're going to put that on the fold of the fabric, because you'll need one. This is, for example, for the back of the little jacket. When you fold it out, it creates the one piece you'll need for the back of the jacket. Now, some pieces you're going to have to put what's called interfacing on. And interfacing helps the fabric be just a little bit more, have a little bit more body. This is a lightweight fusible interfacing, and it's fusible. So what I did is I fused it on the back of my fabric, and I'm going to cut out those pieces that need to have that little bit of extra body. It's going to help the garment look really, really good. It's the same with doll clothes as it is on people clothes. So this is a great way to get familiar with how that works. So these are the different pieces. I'm going to lay them out, cut them out, go to the sewing machine, and let's explore just a couple different things that we're going to need to know to get started with a garment. It's really a lot simpler than you think. And basically, the machine, I'm on the Brother Stellair today, the machine's going to help you just a little bit. That's what we expect out of a machine, right? I'll meet you over at the machine. So after you get your pattern cut out, just be aware that you're just going to look at the pattern, the instructions that come with the pattern. And now this is a regular pattern that you would get in an envelope that I'm using now, but on a downloaded pattern that you digitally download, many pictures, they're beautifully done, and they're available for not only doll size, but people size as well. There's just a little bit more that might need to be taped together on that. But the pattern piece, if you can see the pattern guide sheet, it's going to show you basically with the illustrations usually. It's going to give you some basic sewing instruction. We're going to get a little bit more on the sewing machine as well. That's pretty cool. But it's going to take you through step by step through the different process. Now, I suggest if you've never made something like this before, just look through the process. In your head, get it straight what things are going to do. Generally, things are assembled before they're assembled, if you know what I mean. So basically, following the instructions, you're going to start with whatever they want you to do. And generally, for a top, it's going to start with the shoulder seams. But you remember, a lot of times different patterns will have different processes, different designs. It's a good idea to see what they want you to do. So I've started a little bit. I'm making a little one in red, and I've sewn the shoulder seams, and I need to put on the little pocket flaps. they add a little bit of design in the front. Now on the doll size, they're fake pocket flaps, and on a garment size, for me, it might be as well. But if you get into it, you could actually have that be a pocket. So you can take, sewing is an adventure. I think it's a lifetime of interest, a lifetime of fun, and there's so much to learn. Like I said, every time you sew, you learn something. So here's the little pocket flap. I'm going to show you how you can do a really good, precise sewing job on that. It's going to be sewn here, and then it's going to be folded down. Now the pattern piece tells me where to put it. Here's my little pattern piece. You lay it on there, and then there's the placement line for that lower flap pocket. You can change the marking over. You could actually take a pin and put it in the two sides of where it goes. You could get some pattern tracing paper for a marker, and this is kind of a little tracing wheel. You lay that tracing on there and you can mark it that way. There's lots of different ways to mark. What you want to make sure of, if you're marking on the right side for sure, is you're going to want to make sure that that marking will come out, if it's on the right side of the garment especially. So just do a test on that scrap fabric after you cut it away. One thing also to note, if you're looking at the pattern piece, you see all these little V's on the side? Well, that's where the pattern pieces kind of match up. So if you see a V like that, you can cut a little V, or you can take your scissors and you can just do a little snip. And that's going to give you the indication of where this pattern piece needs to match the other one. Sometimes there's multiples. On the back of the garment, on the arm's eye, there's usually two little marks. On the front, there's one. So that means you're not going to get your sleeve on the wrong side, if you know what I mean. So here's the little collar piece. Now it's going to go as a pre-assembled unit onto the collar, and that's going to be in a step that comes down the line. I put a little bit of velvet. I had a scrap. It doesn't take that much fabric for doll clothes. I had a little scrap of velvet. Now if you're sewing with unusual materials, I think doll clothes are a great way to experiment with those. For example, velvet has what's called a nap. That means if you're rubbing the fabric, one way it feels rough, one way it feels smooth. And if you're not familiar with different fabrics, you could always go. There's tons of little videos out there to show you how to sew with different fabrics. And then that's a great way to learn how to use like a different fabric piece. The little blouse that goes with this, it's supposed to be a silky, satiny kind of a thing. So I'll make that out of a silky, satiny little scrap, or a remnant I might have found at a fabric store. Or even online. You can get a lot of fabrics online as well. So, before we get to sewing, here's one of the little pocket pieces. What's going to happen is a lot of times you'll sew a piece and then you'll turn it right side out. And there's a little bit of a procedure for that. So what I'm going to do when I'm turning a piece right side out is here's the seam line, and I know you probably can't see it because of course I'm using matching thread. But on these little curves, especially on the curves that were on the collar, I'm going to make little clips right up to the stitching. That's called releasing the seam. So after I make the little clips that are close to the stitching, I'm going to turn it right side out. And I do that for the collar, I'm going to do that for the little flaps. A lot of different parts of a garment is what you're going to use that for. So don't forget, always you can look on your pattern piece as well, and it shows you the process for doing that clipping. It shows you the process for the corners. Remember I told you about that one website where they have the doll patterns? I noticed on there they had a free beginning sewing tutorial. I didn't watch it, but it might work for you. So go out there and check it out. Now I'm going to show you basically on the machine a couple things that I think are kind of really basic. This is that little pocket flap, and we want it, well, sewing small, actually, it might be a little bit more challenging to go small than it is to do a big. But if you're doing a small, precise piece like that, you could be making something just as small for a garment, like a little button tab or something. So what I did is I cut out a piece of just a regular typing paper. I cut it out to the shape that I want it to be. When I sew with the machine, I'm just going to sew just outside that pattern, that fabric, and use it as a guide. And then I'm just going to cut it out Just like I did this, clip the corners and turn it right side out. So that's kind of a fun little trick. Here's that facing that goes on the inside of the jacket. Notice I sewed the shoulder seams because that pattern told me that was next. We're going to finish this edge though, because it's going to be exposed of a raw edge. I could turn it right side under, but these curves might make that tricky. I'm going to do? Well, I'm going to use the machine to clean finish that edge. There's a special stitch in the Stellair for that. Here's the sleeve. Now here's the sleeve, and it's going to go into what's called the arm's eye. This is the arm's eye right here, and this curved part is going to fit in the front and in the back. But if you look at your shoulders, you notice that you have a little bit extra here, and here's where the seam is going to be. So this is what's called, we're going to ease this part in. For a puffy sleeve, it gets big, but sometimes it's not puffy. Sometimes it's just elegant. How do you do that? Well, you're going to use those notches to match exactly where things go. Notice I cut a little notch for where the top, where the shoulder seam is going to be, but you do something called ease stitching, or you can use this for stay stitching. So here's that other shoulder piece, that other sleeve rather, easy for me to say. Notice I just did a line of stitching right around here. Can you see how, it might be hard on this fabric, see how that's just kind of automatically taking this flat piece and making it ready to go in that sleeve. So now, enough talking, let's do some sewing. So I threaded up my machine with just an all-purpose thread for this cotton. Let's start with just basically sewing this flap down, and then we'll create the other flap. Remember, you can do all these little parts and pieces. Making a garment doesn't have to be a one-day marathon. You can do little parts and pieces as you go, and I could do this one morning when I had some spare time. So here we are. Oh, we need a foot. So let's put our foot on. I'm actually having mostly a 1/4 inch seam on this, so I'm going to use my Ultra T 1/4 inch foot. And I have the needle in the center position. And when I come on up here, I'm just going to sew this part down. Pretty simple. Notice I have my pins, and I'm going to take them out because I really kind of don't want to sew on them. I'm just going to get started a little bit. And just do a little back stitch. And use the scissors to cut the thread. Now this flap comes down just like that. Now, do I need to cover this raw edge? Well, I could, but I don't necessarily have to. So when I stitch it down like that, I have a couple different options that I can go. Notice that sticking out there, I might trim that off. But I have some basic special stitches that's really going to help me keep this flap down. So let's go to the screen of the machine. Notice I'm just on my center needle position for stitching. But let's explore just a little bit. I'm going to come down here to buttonholes, which you might be a little bit surprised. Now, if I look through buttonholes, actually I have this little guy right here, and that's the button sewing stitch. Well, I'm not putting on buttons now. Why did I pick that? Well, I want this flap to stay down, right? So I can use this stitch to hold it down. Isn't that clever? So now we chose that. Let's switch our foot over just to basic. Notice the machine's going to show me that I'm going to put that button attaching foot on. But I'm not using it to do a button. So I'm basically just going to take my in foot, snap it on the machine. We're going to trim this little bit that's sticking out. Put that under just like that. Bring this little guy over. Lower down the foot. And then when I press go, it's just going to tack that down. Just as nice as you please. Oh, I didn't do the lazy version. Let's do the lazy version next time. We'll do snips. But we'll tell the machine to automatically clip that thread when we're done. Maybe that's not the lazy version. Maybe that's just the efficient version. So remember I said what we're going to do is we're just going to clean finish this edge of the facing. And there's lots of different choices. So let's explore that on the machine. I'm going to put this over to the side. Now I'm going to go back to my regular utility stitches right up here. And I have all kinds of fun little stitches here. What do they all mean? Well, I could choose that one. It kind of looks like it might be an overcasting stitch, but this one says it's overcasting too. That one says it's overcasting too. Which one do I use? Well, like I said, a machine like the Stellair can meet you a lot more than halfway. Let's go to the top of the screen. And we have different guides built into this machine. We have an operation guide. That's just the basic maneuvering of how we do the machine. A sewing guide. That sounds like it might be useful. And a pattern explanation and a video. Let's try sewing guide. Notice it's made for garments, right? So I'm going to want to do some overcasting. What does that look like? Well, I touch that, it shows me all the different choices that I have for doing an overcasting stitch. And I get to choose the one that's perfect for me. Well, I have a thin or medium fabric. So choice number one, well, that's perfect. So I can pick that stitch and it's going to show me 3 different pages of everything I need to do. I can see that I need that G-foot. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put that on the machine. Pattern explanation. Well, let's close it and let's choose 116. That's the one I was supposed to choose. Notice I chose that and the machine already came up with that. If we come back here and we go to pattern explanation, well, we know now that that's what it's for, but it's going to show me all the different parts that I need, especially to do that stitch. All the things I need. Return. But what is that video all about? When I come to video, I have all different videos to show me different things on the machine. Under sewing, I have the presser foot guide, all the different parts and pieces that I need to have. If this was heavier weight fabric, I might choose this video right here, and it's going to show me basically the functions of the machine. It's going to work for a heavier fabric. If you're making a pair of jeans or using any other kind of heavy fabric, well, this is going to be very useful for you. So now, I know what that needs to do. What I need to do, we're going to close that out and get my G-foot, which is what this machine said I needed. So this is the accessory box that comes with the Stellair. And if you look at the trays on the top, it's going to show, well, let's take it out so that you can see it. There is the G-foot that I'm supposed to be using. Notice it's very well designed. They don't come out unless you want them to. So let's snap our G-foot on. Oops, got to be out of there. And what I'm going to do is I follow the instructions, and the instructions has shown me that I'm going to lower that presser foot. I'm going to guide right along the edge. I'm going to use this guide right here to sew right along the edge of the fabric. So let's do a little bit so that you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to go around the whole piece, but I hope you can see that's a really nice clean finished edge coming on around there. So that part in the instructions was easy to do because the machine helped me more than halfway. So now, what else do we need to see? Well, let me just show you that easing of that sleeve into the the arm's eye. So here's my little guy. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be using this foot and this stitch, so we'll take that off temporarily. I'm just going to put my regular sewing foot on. We're going to go back to just a basic stitch. Now that's the center needle position. But remember, I'm using this as a, this pattern asks me to use a 1/4 inch seam. So I can do a couple things. I can engage my guide light and I can change it over to the side. So I'm getting, using this foot, I'm getting approximately a 1/4 inch guide line. So there's my stitch, and that red light's going to indicate what my guide line is. And you can see on the bed of the machine, I have that guide light to show me exactly where that raw edge of the fabric needs to be. And I can adjust everything for whatever works for me. So while we're here we go. Here's the right side, obviously. Here's the right side of my guy. What we're going to do is we're going to match the notches. Here's my double notch. Here's my double notch. Well, obviously, this goes just like that. And what I'm going to do, oops. What I'm going to do is take this, now that I've eased it up, I'm going to put right sides together, use my mighty pins to line up those notches. Now you're putting a concave piece to a convex piece, and what you're going to do is you're going to line up those notches, and can you see how that stitching just brings that in just a little bit? And do the same for the other side. Going to match that edge. Put a pin in there. And that ease stitching has brought that cap of that and made it just a little bit smaller so it fits the edge that I need to fit. Perfect. Now as I'm sewing, what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that this part that I'm easing in is on the bottom. So I'm going to turn it right side, sleeve side down, and stitch here. And the feed dogs are going to help me ease that part in. So I'm going to lower the presser foot and use that guide along the edge. Now, there's another feature of the machine that I use all the time, and it's called pivot. I'm not doing a lot of pivoting, but I have this little symbol right here. What that does is that when I stop making the machine go, when I take my foot off the power pedal, it raises the foot but lets the needle stay in. So I can make sure and adjust all these little parts that I'm trying to fit together. So let's start to sew. Oh, and another thing that I can do, I can also program the machine to automatically reinforce when I start and automatically reinforce and snip the threads at the end. Now, but earlier I called that lazy sewing, but it's really, seriously, it's not lazy sewing. It's just efficient sewing. Notice how it reinforced. Now when I come, notice how the foot of the machine raised up, and I'm just going to make little tiny journeys along this arm's eye just to make sure that everything is matching. Going from pin placement to pin placement and using my guide line to make sure that everything is staying together. The right distance. Did I do it? Well, I sure did. So, like I said, sewing a garment, kind of a little bit of an adventure. There's all kinds of different fun little processes. It's never boring because as soon as you do this, you're off to this and you're off to that. But the guidelines of the pattern are going to show you step by step. Don't be scared. If you're starting small, well, if it doesn't work out, it's still going to be a fun toy. And some little princess is really going to appreciate it. And it's going to be street worthy no matter what you do. And remember, the different features on the sewing machine and the different informational guidelines on the sewing machine and the pattern guide, it's all there for you. So be brave. Make a garment. Even if it's small, once you do that, let's make a big one. I promise you're going to enjoy it. And it's an adventure. Maybe it's a lifetime adventure. Thank you for watching. I'm going to have George. George is going to tell you a little bit about the Stellair because it's a pretty amazing machine. And like I said, meet you more than halfway.
Thanks, Cathy. That was an incredible presentation. And so let's go over the special offer we have on the Brother Stellair series. So we have the XJ2, which is their combination sewing and embroidery, and the XE2, which is dedicated embroidery. They both share the same embroidery features, which is a large 9.5 by 14 inch embroidery area with over 780 built-in embroidery designs, and of them, over 100 of them are Disney. It also has over 30 fonts and large, beautiful monograms. And with the fonts, you can edit in all kinds of arrangements. You can arc, you can array, you can even cut and paste and kern it in some custom ways. Speaking of customization, you can take a design and do an automatic applique around it. And with the matrix copy, you can copy this very quickly to make patches. And if we had the scan and cut, we can actually send it to the scan and cut, cut out those patches, and then embroider them beautifully. An additional advanced technology is a new 2-point laser positioning. I can take something like a name and position it perfectly on a line. I can use it to do multiple hoopings and match them perfectly. I can even use it for edge-to-edge quilting. Now, part of what the Stellair series offers is a special relationship with the scan and cut. They actually can marry together, so I can send an applique design right from my machine and it will cut it out perfectly for beautiful applique. But better yet, I can send a design from my scan and cut and turn it into embroidery. It also unlocks a new feature where I can choose one of the colors of my design, whether if it's a built-in design, I can choose that and turn it into applique. But let's take that heart that I sent over. I turn it into embroidery. I select the color, and now it's applique. Now let's bring over the third part of the piece. I want to create my own fabric, and I can do that with Print Moda. I took an image of a rose and I arranged it just in a beautiful kaleidoscope of color. And I printed that fabric and placed it on in the scan and cut. I took my design I created on the Stellair from the scan and cut, sent it over to the scan and cut it out, and I have one complete embroidery design created with that trifecta of creativity. Now the XJ2 also is a sewing machine, and it has a large 11.25 inch opening, beautiful lighting. It has 760 built-in stitches, from quilting stitches to applique to utility. It even has automatic stippling and some beautiful decorative stitches that are very, very wide. It also has an automatic 1/4 inch feature which moves the needle over a 1/4 inch from the foot, and you can use the laser guidance it has on there so you can just do some beautiful piecing. It also has amazing fabric control with an automatic fabric sensor, and this gives you the ability to sense multiple layers like in denim, or if I want to sew on some sheer fabric like this tricot, I can do that beautifully, or even working with elastics. It handles the fabric beautifully. If it's even more extreme, we can add the digital dual feed. This is a belt-driven feed system that gives perfect contact on the fabric. And so you see here with this marine vinyl, there's no slippage. I also can use it with such things as minky, which is hard to sew with, and of course, quilting. For more information on this incredible product, click on the link to see our current special offer, you can email us at customerservice@moores-so.com or call us at 1-800-865-9664.